A flat for sale sign has a perimeter of 58 inches. The length is 5 longer than the width. Find the width. So I sketched a rectangle. I know that the perimeter is 58. And then I'm also told that the length is 5 longer than the width. So I'm going to let W represent width. And if the length is 5 longer than that, I would want to do W plus 5. Since it's a rectangle, we know that opposite sides are going to be the exact same length. And to do perimeter, we're going to add all the sides together. So I have W plus 5 plus W plus 5 equals 58. You also could have used the formula 2L plus 2W equals perimeter, and you would still get the same answer. When I combine like terms, I get 4W plus 10 equals 58, and I subtract 10 from both sides. I get 4W equals 48, and then dividing by 4, W is 12. Jared is having a problem with rabbits getting into his vegetable garden, so he decides to fence it in. The length of the garden is 8 feet more than 3 times the width, and he needs 56 feet of fencing to do the job. Find the length and width of the garden. So I'm going to just sketch a rectangle, and then I'm going to go back to the information about the length and width. So the length is 8 feet more than 3 times the width. Again, the width is W, and then the length, 8 feet more than 3 times the width. So 3 times the width is 3W. 8 more than is plus 8. Again, rectangles opposite sides are going to be the exact same. And the perimeter, we're told, is 56. So I just want to add all those together. W plus 3W plus 8 plus W plus 3W plus 8 equals 56. If I combine like terms, I get 8W plus 16 equals 56. Subtract 16 on both sides. 8W equals 40. And when you divide, you get that the width is 5. To find the length, we just want to take this 5 and plug it in. So I would have 3 times 5 plus 8, which is 15 plus 8. So the length is 23. On this next example that says the 3 angles in a triangle always add up to be 180. If one angle in a triangle is 72, so I'm going to go ahead and label the first angle 72. The second is 3 times the third. What are the 3 angles? So it doesn't give me any information about the third angle. So I'm going to name this X. And I'm just going to label it third so I remember which one I'm referring to. So one more time reading this, it says the second is 3 times the third. So this is the second angle. 3 times the third would be 3 times this angle right here, so 3x. Then if you remember back to the first sentence, the angles always add up to be 180. So I want to take each of these, so 72 plus 3x plus x equals 180. If I combine like terms, 4x, subtract 72 from both sides, 4x equals 108. And when I divide by 4, I get 27. So the first angle, which I'm given, was 72 degrees. Angle number 3, so this one, when I plug it in, would be 27 degrees. And the third angle, I need to do 3 times 27, which is 81. For this next one, it says Kang and Hector live 30.6 miles apart in southeastern Missouri. They decide to bicycle towards each other and meet somewhere in between. Hector's rate of speed is 70% of King's. They start out at the same time and meet 3 hours later. Find Hector's rate of speed. So I'm going to start with the first couple pieces of information. So they live 30.6 miles apart, and we know that it takes them 3 hours to meet. And so since I have a distance and time, it's making me think of our distance formula. So distance equals rate times time. And I can easily find the rate. So if I wanted to solve for rate, I would divide both sides by time. And so distance divided by time will get us the rate. So I'm going to take 30.6 miles and divide that by 3 hours. And I get 10.2 miles per hour. So the first equation I could write, and I'm going to use K and H for their names, is that together, K plus H, their rate is 10.2 miles per hour. The second piece of information they give me is that Hector's rate of speed is 70% of King's. So if I write something out for that, it's that Hector equals 0.7, because we want to write it as a decimal, K. When you look at this, since our variables aren't lining up perfectly, we wouldn't want to type it into Desmos. So I'm actually just going to take this and plug it in for H here and then solve. So I would write K plus 0.7K equals 10.2. Combine like terms, 1.7K equals 10.2, and then divide. And we figure out that King's rate is 6 miles per hour. Then I need to plug this back in because I'm really interested in Hector's speed. So I want to do this times 0.7. And we find out that his speed is 4.2 miles per hour. For this next one, a vendor sells hot dogs and bags of potato chips. A customer buys 5 hot dogs and 2 bags of potato chips for $13.75. So there's the information for our first equation. So 5D plus 2P equals $13.75. Another customer buys 4 bags of hot dogs, 3 bags of potato chips for $12.75. So our second one would be 4D plus 3P equals $12.75. Since our variables are lined up perfectly, we would want to use Desmos to solve this one. So remember, you would write an augmented matrix and then plug that in and use the row reduced echelon form button to figure out the solution. Once you type this into Desmos, your row reduced echelon form matrix would look like this. Just as a reminder, this was our hot dogs. This was our chips. And so when I interpret the answer, the hot dogs were $2.25. The chips were $1.25. A movie theater charges $8 for adults and $5 for children. If there were 40 people altogether and the theater collected $272 at the end of the day, how many of them were adults? So when we do problems like this, there's two equations that we're going to set up. The first is total, and then the second has to deal with our money. So when we think about this, we know 40 people attended, and we know that there are two types of people. There are adults and there are children. So our first equation would be adults plus children equals 40 people total. Our second equation is all going to deal with the money. So it's $8 for adults and it's $5 for children, and the total amount is $272. So $8 for adults, $5 for children, $272 total. Again, we're going to write a matrix because our variables are lined up perfectly. So we would have 1, 1, 40, 8, 5, 272. And this would be typed into Desmos. Once I do this, the solution I see looks like this. And so then we need to be able to interpret that. So since I listed the adults first, and there's a 1 here, that means there were 24 adults. There were 470 people at a school play. The admission price was $2 for adults and $1 for children. The admission receipts were $670. How many adults and how many children attended? So this is very similar to the last one. So there's two things happening. I have a total, and then I have equations dealing with money. So the first one, there were 470 people total. The types of people were adults and children. So adults plus children equals 470. The second equation all has to deal with my money. So $2 for the adults, $1 for the children, 670 total. Since the variables are lined up, I would write an augmented matrix. So 1, 1, 470, 2, 1, 670, and then I type that into Desmos. Once I type that in, the output I get looks like this. And so to interpret that, I have adults 200, children 270. Marty received an inheritance of $40,000. She invested part at 9% and the rest at 12%. Her total annual income from the investments was $3,900. Find the amount she invested at 9%. When we work with these problems, we use the interest formula, which is I equals PRT. Since we're making two investments, you need to think about this. So your total interest comes from those investments added together. And so really this time my formula sort of looks like this. So starting off, we need to think about those investments. So if she's to invest a certain number in the first investment, we're going to call it X. To figure out how much she can invest in the second investment, we have to consider that she had $40,000. But she already invested X amount. So 40,000 minus X is what we would have left over to invest in our second account. I'm just going to start filling things in at this point. So the interest is $3,900. The first principal would be our first investment amount, which is X. The rate for that would be 9%, which we need to express as a decimal, so 0.09. And this is all over 1 year, so time is 1. For my second investment, the principal amount is 40,000 minus X. The rate is 12, which we need to express as a decimal. And then lastly, it's still over 1 year. Then we want to simplify. So 3,900 equals 0.09x. We would want to distribute this. Combine like terms. Subtract 4,800. And then divide by negative 0.03. And we get 30,000. X was our first investment, which I highlighted in blue, and that was the one with the interest rate at 9%. So the answer for this one would be $30,000. Tim and Judy mix 2 kinds of feed for pedigreed dogs. They wish to make 24 pounds of feed worth 53 cents per pound. By mixing one kind worth 37 cents per pound and another worth 91 cents per pound, how many pounds of the cheaper kind should they use in the mix? So this is almost like those movie theater problems. We're going to talk about 2 equations. One is going to be total pounds, and one's going to deal totally with cost. So starting off with the pounds, there's 2 types of feed. Personally, I'm just going to use C for the cheaper price and E for the expensive price. So the total pounds comes from the cheaper feed plus the more expensive feed, and we want it to be 24 pounds total. When we get into the money, we want to make 24 pounds at 53 cents per pound. So to figure out my total, I need to multiply those 2 together, which is $12.72. So when I'm adding up the cost of these 2 feeds, I have 0.37 for the cheaper kind plus 0.91 for the expensive, and total cost needs to be $12.72. For this, we would write our matrix and type it into Desmos. As an answer, we would see this. It's important to note that this problem said, round your answer to the nearest pound, so I could have assumed I would probably get some kind of a decimal. And it wants to know about the cheaper kind, which I listed first, meaning this is the amount I need, and rounded to the nearest pound, we would say 17. For number 10, Devin purchased tickets to an air show for 9 adults and 2 children. The total cost was $175. So that's my first equation. 9 adults, 2 children, $175. The cost of a child's ticket was $6 less than an adult's ticket. So the child's ticket equals the adult minus 6. Since my variables don't line up, it's easiest to just take this information and substitute it in for C. So the adult is 17, and then since we know that the child's ticket is 6 less than that, children would cost 11. A cruise boat travels 12 miles downstream in 4 hours and returns upstream in 12. Find the rate of the stream. Anytime we do these, we want to remember our distance equals rate times time formula, and we want to start off by finding the rate. Remember, when we solve this equation for rate, we end up with distance divided by time. So we'll start with that. There's going to be two of these rates. There's one that's downstream and one that's upstream. The downstream rate is 12 divided by 4, which gives me 3 miles per hour. The upstream is 12 divided by 12, which is 1 mile per hour. And then I can set up my two equations. The boat plus the stream is 3 miles per hour. The boat minus the stream is 1 mile per hour. Remember, whenever you're working against the current or against the wind, the total should be less. Since these variables line up, it's easiest just to type this into Desmos. I listed the stream second, meaning that the stream is 1 mile per hour. In our last example, Kelly is a partner in an internet-based seed and garden supply business. The company offers a blend of exotic wildflower seeds for $95 per pound and a blend of common wildflower seeds for $30 per pound. Kelly wants to create a medium price blend and mix together 35 pounds of the expensive blend and 9 pounds of the less expensive. What will the price per pound for the new blend? Round to the nearest cent. So we just took in a lot of information. I'm going to start off with the fact that we are going to take 35 pounds and 9 pounds for our new blend. So altogether, we're going to be making 44 pounds of this. I also need to calculate the cost of each part. So for the exotic wildflower, it's $95 per pound, and we're using 35 pounds of it. So the total cost is going to be $3,325. For the common wildflower, it's $30 per pound, and we're using 9 pounds of it, which is $270. So if I add those two together, I get $3,595, which is the total cost to make these. And it's the total cost for 44 pounds. So if I want to find the price per pound, I would just divide the two. And I get $81.70.